Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Wise Women series, our monthly series of monthly mentors that we're showing up for you, women inspiring, supporting, empowering women. And we're so excited to be here with you again today. And I would just like to welcome your mentors. And if you could just say hello briefly so everybody sees your beautiful faces. And I'm going to go around and welcome you. Merissa, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Happy March.
Thank you. Jen, welcome.
Hello, glad to be here.
And we're glad that you're here with us too. Thank you. And Marixa, welcome. Oh, you're on mute.
So sorry. Hello, everyone, and I'm so happy to be here again with you all.
Thank you. Thank you all for saying yes and showing up, because this is just such a beautiful offering that we're all here, present, and available for each one of you. And if any of you ever have something that you would love for us to talk about, to share with you, I encourage you to write an email to support@everythingissacred.com. We will view your emails, your recommendations, your questions, and we will try to get to them, even if it's just creating a short video clip and putting them out for you. So we welcome each one of you. And so our topic today is based on that we're moving into spring. And so I'm going to ask everybody, as you start to take your path of awakening and recognizing that your soul in this beautiful journey, symbolically, I'm going to, Merissa, what does spring mean to you symbolically? Like, what does it represent exactly?
Oh, it's a wonderful rebirth and renewal kind of frequency as we're emerging from kind of more of a hibernation, or an internal phase with winter. And you think about all the new life, baby animals that will be coming, and just a lot of new growth, flowers just starting, just the very whispers of the new growth.
That's beautiful. And that is what it is for each one of us. So if we begin to see seasons as part of our transformational journey and begin to reflect on that, in what way am I being invited to grow a little bit more? And so beautiful. Thank you, Merissa. Now, Jen, you're the next on my screen, so I invite you to share.
Yeah, everything Merissa said as well. And I think that it's my favorite season where there's just so much opportunity for transformation. And I think, as Merissa was saying, like, coming out of winter where we're a little more still, it's like this is really ripe for almost like the shedding of the snake. I keep seeing myself and some of the clients I've worked with, like, we're all in eggs right now, which is, of course, it's like, like, okay, it's kind of cliche, but it really, I keep seeing us like in this still, like we're fertile, yet we're being incubated, we're being nurtured, and we haven't quite broken through. Like, even though where I'm at right now, the buds are opening and the marigolds are not the marigolds, daffodils are blooming. And it just kind of feels like there's just this literal rebirth happening, but it's like we're still in the preparatory time for that, it feels like.
Mhm. I can resonate with that too. So much going on for each one of us. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jen. Marixa, what does this mean to you symbolically?
I agree with everyone as well. And spring is definitely one of my favorite seasons. And when I think of spring, I feel like it's like coming out of a sleepy time, of a cocoon, like we see in nature. And we're just like opening our eyes slowly to that new beginning, to that new refreshing energy. And it's exciting because we're going to begin new things. We're going to start new things. And so it's beautiful. It's a beautiful season. Very
It is a
representative.
beautiful time, isn't it? Yeah. Time where we're witnessing more of the light coming in. And so maybe witnessing our own light coming in a bit more, but also relating to everything all of you are sharing is even Jen tending to, it's almost like in spring, we're digging it up, we're tending to the soil, we're helping things nurture and grow. And so this is symbolically what we're all being called to is like, even though we are moving into a time where there's more light, there's still things that we're tending to. We still need to nurture. And so I love that the equinox comes in spring too, and coming up just around the corner, which is equal amount of day and equal amount of light. And we all feel this beautiful resonance towards the light. And yet it's the shadow, that it's the darkness that so much can happen. And so again, I'm going to come around because a lot of us attach negative connotation to the shadow, to the darkness, and yet there's beautiful things that happen there too. So, Merissa, if I can come back to you now and we can approach it that way, equal amount of light and equal amount of darkness, shadow, whatever it is.
Well, it's really wonderful because at the time of our recording, we're in a balsamic moon phase. And so that is the darkest part of the moon's lunation cycle. And it is working with the deeper aspects of the psyche and the subconscious. And it's pretty fascinating. It's a deep time. And the images I have is because we're still, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's almost like there's a tango still happening, until the spring equinox with winter and spring. And so we're breaking new ground. And so it's like the image of, the ground was frozen. We were in a freeze. And sometimes it can feel like we're in that space for so long. It's so much stillness. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm just ready to bust through, just break through. And it's like when you see the mushrooms bust through the soil and you can actually see actual little clouds of soil as they've burst through. You can see this explosive energy. And that's that masculine energy that's like I'm ready to go. Let's go. I've got so many ideas. I'm so excited. And yet there's also a tango with the feminine energy. And so for me, what it's been this last week's been fascinating is a new masculine for myself, a new aspect of the masculine, and these new integrations where neither the sacred masculine or the sacred feminine are locking horns anymore or trying to, one is going to dominate this now and then I'm going to flow into this. It's like the separation is kind of starting to dissolve, and there's a meeting together of these energies of how do we become one. And I'm seeing like the yin yang symbol, that totality in this. And so it's the same with the dark and the light as we're working through so much core programming yet again, right? And we think about Easter energies and that sacred rebirth. It's like there's a reason that these mass holidays, and mainstream religious celebrations, it all has to do with the cosmos and the seasons, which brings us back to Divine Mother. And so there's these elements of working with Divine Mother right now and the Sacred Father energies as they're coming forth in this procreation, right? That alchemy, that deep union within ourselves. And it can be interesting because you may observe a wrestle between the aspects of self, the subconscious or the emotions. And the emotions want to rise with Divine Mother saying, let me assist you through this. Let's find the stillness in these choppy waters by trying to still ourselves and go with the flow. and work in a spiral. And the masculine can say, well, I want to keep going. I want to write my book. I want to, you know, all these things we're excited about doing. And so we have to keep finding that middle point, that 0 point. So it's a very exciting time, but it's not boring right now.
Not at all. Not at all. And Jen, I was going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to open this up and see if you want to go this pathway as well, just because I know you train with grace and I know that we are entering this sacred time. And just maybe approaching it from that angle as well, because Marissa started with that, you know, the masculine and the feminine, and, you know, some of the healing that needs to be done, and what we are all shifting towards as humanity, as a global movement, in a sense that maybe people are not yet aware of, and yet this is inviting us to return to something. And so I'm just going to open that up to you, Jen, and see what it is that you have to share about that.
Sure. I'm kind of, I would, let me tune into that. Well, I see I can sense that there's a greater opportunity for that sacred union happening and that balance, which in turn also illuminates the discordance. And so, as we were saying, in terms of getting out of winter, it's like there's been this accumulation that is ripe for transformation, which in my experience, and I've seen this in my sessions, is taking us deeper to where those paradigms of separation between the masculine and feminine have been, you know, so broken, right? So in mistrust and misalignment with each other. And particularly as we embark in the spring with that, you know, emergence of the divine feminine and the divine mother coming through, that also is like, to me, like reaching into the depths of where, you know, we've hidden in the shadows, or the pain has been stored, or the, you know, the trapped emotions and wounds that have yet to be addressed. So it's like, you know, kind of the whole spiritual pathway, like the higher we go and the lighter we go, the darker and deeper we need to go so that they can come back together in that union. And it just, my sense is that we are really in this very ripe time, as we've been saying, to, you know, there's easier access. Now, not comfortable at all. I can only speak from my personal experience, and that, like, I'm being taken to places that I won't go into to bring into the field here, but they are very dark and they're very wounded and they're very, very painful. And, you know, and I've been working on, you know, these kinds of energies for like 10 years, but like the deep violations of the feminine, for instance, right? And so my sense is that, you know, people who are here to do the light work and are here to reconcile that emergent, or that union between divine masculine and feminine, we are being guided to those deeper places right now. And like that's kind of back to that egg energy, because when, you know, as we transmute those and alchemize those, then that union and that literal rebirth can happen. But there's still death energy around that, because we can't exist in that old paradigm anymore, right? So those really deep places of wounding and mistrust and separation and you know, not being able to meet each other feel very up in the field this month, you know. And then we've got the, as Marissa was saying, like the Christ portal, like the Easter, that is also contributing, and not, you know, I'm not adhering to the religious aspects of it, but just the, like the resurrection aspects of it from, you know, from that perspective. So hopefully that makes sense.
Mhm.
But
Well, totally, especially as we begin to awaken and understand that life is about symbolism, right? And so instead of taking things so literal, we begin to see life as symbolic. And that's when you start to experience more and more synchronicities too, and witness that. And say, what is life showing me now and reflecting to me now? And being in the awe and the wonder of the magic of it too. And so that's going to bring me into opening this up for you, Marixa, because we're talking about the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, but we, you know, Merissa and I were talking just before we started recording and about the child, the wounded child, but there's a sacred child, there's the divine child. And so, you know, symbolically, the child needs to, like, I'm just going to invite you to comment on this, Marixa. What is it your sense is about spring, about the rebirth, about the tending to the soil, and, you know, what's coming to you? Let me just invite that, you know, you to share with us.
Yes, I love what Jen and Merissa were sharing as well. And so talking about the darkness and the light, they come to balance in the spring, just before the spring and during the equinox, as you were saying, you know, equal amount of darkness and light. And as we approach that, I feel that there's a time there that we are just invited to slow down and let it happen and allow it, because there is that tango that Merissa was mentioning. And so if we get caught in that, we're not going to get to the balance, and we have to allow the balance to emerge so that birth, that new birth can happen. And that is like the new baby. Our new babies can come and can land. And that's how I see the process of when we say, you know, winter into spring, you know, it's all internal as well. It's very symbolic. And it's allowing. And I need to slow down. I mean, allow everything that's coming so that that darker time or whatever, the cold or that cocoon period can actually can have its time and then mature, and then we can just spring into the new, which is the birth of this. I'm going to say the new child. It happens. It's constant. It's a constant cycle, as we know. And it's beautiful. It's something to look forward to. And I know mastering that, surrendering to that process, it's a process. Each time we surrender a little more, and it gets easier. But it's truly, it's observing that and allowing that. And that's how I see the whole process. You know, we're coming into the balance, and so that we can birth our new things anew.
That's beautiful. So now what's coming to me is, since we're, you know, we're here as mentors, right? And so it's like, how do we weave this all together and so that we are supporting others? And I feel like what's coming up right now is like, if you were to look at the seasons as symbolic to our own transformational process, and understanding that, you know, so many of us cling to the way that we think life should be, but you know, spring is about new beginnings and growth, and summer is just sort of about witnessing and I'm not even sure, you know, like tending to and appreciating that. But then fall, we're falling away, things are falling away again, and then go into our cocoon, which is very much like our transformational journey that goes in these little spirals and cycles. And I would love for each one of you to share a little bit about that, just so viewers are aware that we begin to understand this is a cycle we go through we're always going through this spiral, this cycle of our own evolution, our own awakening, our own understanding of self. And so when we witness these things that normally the personal self would cling to and grasp at, understanding that it's a normal part of the process. And that's why nature does so well. And we don't, because we've separated ourselves from the natural order of nature, ourselves. Okay. So Merissa, again, I'm just going to try to keep the flow going. Maybe I should switch it up for you guys, but you know, for you ladies, beautiful way showers. And Merissa, what is it that's coming to you? Comes to you with that one?
Well, so I love the 3, you know, March, right? And so the numerology has been huge, and the Trinity has been huge. And when we talk about the Trinity, we're talking about Father, Mother, Sacred Child, right? All of those being sacred and having it's like a unit that's coming together in alchemy, so the trinitized beingness. But also with that, on kind of a more nano level, on a daily basis, we have a trinity of the transformational processes of energy, the alchemy of energy. So we have a birthing, and then we have a nurturing and sustaining, and then we have a death or a recycling. I don't really like to use death per se because it's not a finality, it's just a transformation, right? And so sometimes it can feel very like final, but it's just a shift. And so there's a trinitized beingness happening constantly, where we are reassessing, okay, so I'm creating this, now I'm nurturing, gestating, now it's time for it to shift into something else, or that door closes, this door opens. And so you can see how the natural cycles are extended over longer periods of time for us to partake, right? And so it's like concentric circles. There's kind of wheels upon wheels of the individual process, the larger process of nature. And I think one of the biggest pieces is for us to remember not to get fixed. We are coming out of a linear functioning into a really just thrown into the mix now, particularly with this year of a quantum or multidimensional functioning. And so we have to check in. How am I doing energetically? How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing psychologically? How's my mental health? I mean, there's so many different layers of our beingness. And so we want to make sure that they're unified. And if they're not, we have to be honoring of what we're witnessing and trust. Okay, so my energy is low. I have a huge list of things that my inner masculine is really excited to accomplish, but it's not aligned. The inner feminine is asking me to sit with this emotional body piece here. So I've got to surrender. So you see how it's always just surrender. It's like, it's quite a rigorous process, but then it's really not. What makes it challenging is our own resistance. And there's also a recycling energy. And so for me, the Phoenix energy, but throwing everything onto the bonfire and then allowing it to come back into form and just huge surrender and trust. And so one example of that is the transformation of our being in this alchemical process where you have an identity and you are called to completely surrender that identity. And the linear mind is like, oh, does that mean I'm wrong? Does that mean I'm aimless and I'm purposeless? And all, the mind is going to go in a million directions. And we have to master that, come back in and say, I don't know, but this is what I'm being told. So I have to trust what the higher consciousness is showing me to do and walk away, put it down and just be and watch and see what happens. And that's what's happening with a lot of root core programming right now. And so the biggest one that I would love to share that's most relevant right now is the dissolving of the walls of separation and allowing the child to be the divine child. So for so many of us, perhaps that had a dysfunctional childhood growing up, that's coming up right now as we're looking at sacred father, sacred mother, and then the child energies. And as we're stepping up into our divinity, we have to be so aware, are we holding these aspects as separate? Because in truth, it's all divinity. And if we grew up in a dysfunctional family, let's say, and we weren't taught coping mechanisms because they weren't part of the ancestral heritage yet, we're the ones coming through, right, to clear that. So are we going to judge aspects of ourselves, again, right, and hold them and crucify them? You could use all these themes that are symbolic themes of what we do to ourselves as less than, not enough, that's not good enough. No, I'm going to reject that. And so this is such an important part of this process of this rebirth and renewal kind of time that we're in, is to start to bring everything in to love. And so we tune into Divine Mother's love, Divine Father's love, how those energies are different, and then really just bringing in. And so that's this Trinity that we've been really deeply in since the leap day really has been coming up.
Thank you. Very beautiful. Jen, what's coming up for you?
Well, I was going to talk about the connecting with the seasons, but I want to just add on to Merissa because that's just now coming into a greater awareness with the Trinity. And I had this experience yesterday. I just figured I'd share to exclamation point your share in that we were doing this sound ceremony and we were talking about reparenting the inner child. And I had this awareness as I was receiving, and she's singing, and I'm receiving like, oh, all the unhealed wounds that I have not yet addressed yet with my parents. There was some expectation of like maybe how they're showing up now that was keeping some of these unhealed, unreleased. And then I just had this beautiful awareness of like, all the ways in which I projected onto my parents the expectations of being that like mother, father, God, I was still holding on to. And so I just allowed myself to receive like the parental mother, father, God energy and then like embrace my sacred child. And so it was so interesting because I was like, oh, I didn't really even give that thought or voice. I was telling Sherry I woke up cranky because I know I'm moving through some of that. But it was like that experience of that Trinity, I think, is coming in. And thank you so much for bringing voice to that because it was like, oh, that's like the purification of our child self that is, also coming up to be addressed. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And then I'll just add to the seasons in that, Sherry, you mentioned about us being disconnected, and that's really that dynamic between the masculine and feminine, where we'll talk about like the distorted masculine wants to override, right? Wants to push through and not honor the cycles, and that we're not only not separate from the seasons, we're not separate from the elements, we're not separate from the earth. And that's part of us coming back into balance, into communion with all that we are, and beginning to honor ourselves in relation to the whole, because there is no separation to that either. And so I think each season we're gifted the opportunity to see, to discern, to have a greater awareness. Like in winter, am I being more still, or am I pushing through, wondering why my projects aren't coming to fruition? And so I think that there's I know Ayurvedic talks a lot about this, and that we're not separate from these cycles. We're not separate from these motions. And when we can begin to tune in more fully and immerse ourselves in the communion, I think it's going to get easier to not override, right? And not let our minds, create these circumstances that negate, or out of alignment with the natural unfoldings. And so I think there's, and spring's such a contrast to the winter. So I think there's really beautiful opportunities to say, okay, like I can start to plant my seeds. I can weed my garden. I can, begin to move into these new beginnings and new creations, but not from a place of force, because just like spring, it takes time for the seedlings to emerge from the ground. It requires sun and food and water. And there's, we can't stand over one of our plants or garden and say, grow faster. Why haven't you bloomed yet? And it's the same with us, where if we were to have just a little more grace for ourselves and maybe it gets easier if we start to see, how close that relationship is between us and the seasons that are cycling through us. So
Beautifully
yeah,
said. Thank you, Jen. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Marixa, what's coming to you as everybody's sharing?
Yes. So what I wanted to share was in the beginning of my, more conscious journey, because I know we're always journeying from birth, right? But since this happened several years ago, I started noticing the changes of the season in depth a little more. So when I was walking out in nature, I mean, they helped me so much. And it was simply just by observing what was happening within each season. So, for example, there's a lot of hiking to be done here. And just like example, the fall. Well, in the fall, as the leaves fall from the tree, they fall so gracefully. There's no resistance. And I started noticing everything in the fall, and how when the winter came, and like you were saying, the hibernation or the time to be in stillness, how important that is. And I started resisting that because, of course, I want to do a lot of things, but it is becoming a lot easier to just allow and flow and allow. Then with the spring, of course, yes, then we are ready to come out and to do everything that was kind of on hold a little bit, or that we couldn't get to. And then in the summer, it's all about the sunshine and things, seeing the fruit of everything that was seeded and the expansion of that. And so what I wanted to say was that a very simple thing, just in your walks, as you're walking outside and just observing nature, that helped me so much. It assisted me so much in actually in my journey and through everything, whatever I was going through, just allowing that natural process to unfold. And like I said earlier, I know it's not easy, but the deeper we observe and fall in that flow of the seasons, we connect to that. And so it's like we're hooking onto the flow of the earth and everything else. And it's really helpful. And that's what I wanted to share.
Beautiful. These are all such beautiful shares. And so there's a couple of things that are coming to me that I would just love to add to. As the other day I read, with spring, it's often, when it comes to the Bible and stuff like that, they see it as a symbol of awakening. And I think that's what's happening for so many of us right now, is that we are awakening to our own source within. And Jen and I were having a conversation for the Conversations for the Heart, and she was talking about this. Jen, you said it so beautifully, and I'm not sure how you shared it, but within us is already this light, is already what it is that each one of us has within us to access. And so I love the symbolism of awakening, because each one of us is being called to, awaken in our own way, awaken and discover and remember who we are, in the most sacred way, in the most compassionate, nurturing, understanding way. And so rather than looking outside of us for this, it's like, what can I cultivate and what can I sit with? Merissa, you and I were talking about the inner child and all these things that are coming up that, and rather than us trying to fix something, it's just sitting with and witnessing and being there. And this is what I love about what we're even doing. It's, not one person is trying to talk over or to take away. It's like we're all adding to and nurturing. And so I just think it's so beautiful. There is one other thing I would love to share, because I think this is amazing. When I meditate, lots of times I can feel myself syncing with the heartbeat of Mother Earth, and I feel it. There was a meditation I used to do, and once we shift our consciousness, we can quickly get there without all the props. And it was a meditation. I can't remember what it was, but it when I would hear it, it was like a drum beat, and I could feel the pulse of Mother Earth. And then it's like syncing with the heartbeat of the universe. And then, so I was listening to something, and they were talking about the Heart Math Institute, and they were doing this study, and they gave 100 people these devices that would monitor their heart rate variability or whatever it is. The only thing these people needed to do, there was 100 of them all spaced all over the world. The only thing they had to agree to was doing this meditation at the exact same time. So they're all in different time zones. So some it would be the middle of the night, some it would be in the morning, in the afternoon, and evening. They all did it at the same time, and they taught them the heart lock meditation it was. And so it's simply breathing in through the heart, becoming aware that you can breathe in, you can breathe through the heart. And then they would lock that in, and they would bring in the feeling of, compassion and kindness and all of these wonderful uplifting vibrational energies. And then at the same time, they would send that out for themselves to receive, but for others. And what they found, they were astounded, because they noticed that everybody, their hearts were in synchronicity, and they couldn't figure it out. And they were, as scientists, trying to rationalize and explain, and they couldn't. And what they finally came to conclusion with was that they were accessing and tapping into and connecting with a different field, the universe. And so then they were talking about how energetically, if we think we're separate, that's a huge mistake, because everything that we have, all of these emotions and feelings that we have, we're sending out these waves. And so when we're consciously beginning to allow ourselves to understand that we are a creator and that we can shift our energy. And by shifting our energy, we shift our consciousness. And so that's such an empowering thing, no matter what's going on, even by simply breathing and witnessing the heart. And whatever way it takes to get there, at some point, each one of us is going to be given a choice to, do I want to experience myself as full and wholeness and a heart opening, or would I prefer to stay, in contraction and separate? And so as we talk about new beginnings and awakening, I feel like, and this even, I want tears are forming now too, because the beautiful sacredness in this, the invitation to simply be witness to yourself without any expectation. And to know that within you, you have all of the resources and source we need. Okay, so that's my share. Now I'm at a place where I'm not sure. I would love for you, each one of you, what's coming to each one of you is, this is now being shared too, because, each one of us has so much to contribute. Marixa, I see you on the screen. Do you have something that's coming to you? I know I'm flipping the order now.
Did you say me, Merissa? I couldn't hear what you said.
Go ahead, Marissa, but I did see Marixa and I could see her emotions stirring in her as I was sharing that. And so if you don't mind, I would like to stick with Marixa for a sec, because what's coming up for you as that's being shared?
What I was really feeling when you were sharing is that, yes, we have everything. Everything is within us. And so that got me really feeling, because we don't remember this. We're coming to this awakening, remembering slowly, gently as we journey. But yes, everything is here. Everything is inside of us. And when I remember that, I get very emotional too. And then I just stop myself, and I need to go out to nature. I need to at least look out the window and see it all there. And it's all just telling me, you are whole. You are. And just please don't forget that. And of course, forgetting it is our journey. But when I remember that we are wholeness, that source is what we truly are, this love. This is when I feel an expansion. And then I feel like I have that, that courage to take the next step. And so that was what's flowing through as you were sharing.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that too. So since I reversed this, Jen, what's coming to you?
Everything you said was beautiful. And I just, again, exclamation point is to witness, feel, observe, connect without the expectations. I think the expectations or an attachment to manipulating or changing something, like the alchemy will happen just as you connect and hold presence for what is, whatever you're communing with, whether that's that expanded space of love that Marixa was just saying, or something in total contrast to that. And at the end of the day, it's not what we're doing with it, but just simply being willing to be like, just show up for every aspect of ourselves in a way that is, completely present, completely here, completely, I always go back to the analogy of the parent, comforting the child, and, the child is upset or something's there, and the parent just seeks to soothe, hopefully not saying like, hey, stop crying now. Like, no, you hold space, and you're there as long as is needed to, just be there. And so that's what really pinged me when you said that, is like, that's the space where when we're not bringing our mind in with expectations or attachments to outcomes, like then we can that wholeness, that communion, right? It dissolves those layers of separation because we're really just meeting that part of us. So thank you.
So beautiful. It's so beautiful to be part of this and to witness this shift in our own fields as we soak in each other's wisdom and stuff like that. And so, Merissa, now I'm coming around to you and see what it is, what's coming up for you.
Well, I just love this conversation. And what comes to mind is the code of the seed and how the seed is the divine blueprint to complete fruition. In philosophy, they have a concept of telos, which is the blueprint, the template of any creation from, the initial creation to the full cycle. And so for myself, living much more closely to nature with more seasons where I am in the north now, and working extensively with the flowers and in the garden, we've really been working deeply with the activation of the seed, the sacred seed, and the trust and the knowingness that all the information is already there. So as we witness these processes of a seed turning into a sprout and then growing a stalk and then becoming a bulb, and the bulb and the tension, and you can see all of those little pieces of that flower just want to pop, and you can feel that tension, and we feel that. We feel this constriction, like I'm ready to go, but it's not time yet, right? And so the deepest pockets of vulnerability on this journey, the emotional parts of this, where the trust is so difficult at first because we are breaking free, we are deprogramming from an industrial society. So one of the core foundations of what I share is we've got to look at the facts that the last couple hundred years we have been completely industrialized. To me, that's the colonization. We've been completely removed from tribal living, where we had elders and children, right? And then the people that were the adult age, the more productive, are doing more of the work, and the elders and the children are working together. And we were harvesting all of these different components of the natural cycle, being a vital part and interconnected with the natural world, right? And having that reverence and that innate understanding. But what's so wonderful is that regardless of these illusions of separation, we are not. All of these are within us. And so I love what everyone is sharing and what Marixa was sharing as well about observing the nature. And that's what has assisted me through a lot of the very rigorous emotional processes where you're going through and you're witnessing trauma and all kinds of pretty, gnarly emotions, right? And yet here we are watching Gaia show us the story that we are a part of, right? And that there's no separation and that we got this. We just have to breathe and take it all in and quiet the mind, right? Because for myself, the mind, oh my gosh, it wants to know, it wants to control, it wants to grasp and define and all of these things. And it's like, just you're like spinning in there, And so you got to descend your consciousness out of the head and into the belly and into the navel area where we used to live in ancient days, much more kind of navel centered, right? And what's interesting about that is one of the codes we were given from Gaia is that every person, when they're standing upright, men and women, where our hips are and our thighs, those lower chakras there are in the ocean of Gaia, the energetic currents, the emanations. So we're walking in it, but we're in here. So it's like descend it down and feel, and tune in. And there is so much comfort because those of us doing this process of awakening, not everyone's doing it yet. And we may be the only one in our family and there's no one to talk to. Thank God we have the online community that we do, but it's not a norm. So a lot of us are breaking these different barriers down, shattering these paradigms. And so nature is, to me, my most powerful teacher, Gaia, and particularly working with the flowers. And so I encourage everyone to just enjoy the process of the flowers and that gestational cycle, because you will be able to easily surrender all of the suffering that's happening at a mental level of why is this happening to me? Where is it? When is it going to shift? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, we can drive ourselves truly batty with that, and we need to start holding our energy and not allow ourselves to go off into the sunset because it's just suffering. It's completely a waste of our life force. And instead to just tune in and feel like, oh, I'm part of this song. I can't mess it up. So I love this conversation because it's been a vital part of my journey coming into spring, right? And that rebirth is so powerful every year. Every year gets stronger and stronger. So thank you.
Such beautiful shares. And I thank each one of you as we come to an end in our beautiful Wise Women series conversation, monthly conversation. But before we go, I'd like to just invite each one of you to say some final words. And if there's anything that you would like to share with the viewers, like even in through the newsletter, if there's a gift that you're offering this month or not, please share whatever it is that's coming to you. Final message. Marissa, you're on my camera, so let's go with you.
I'm going to put the Sacred Self-Care ebook up again because I'm going to keep hitting that self-care. I'm the prime example of someone who would resist that, and now it's like, nope, you can't. You've got to be and learn how to. And that's also really important to assist us to develop the feminine and the receiving energies, which are vital for us to be in that balance. So I feel like that's really supportive for the equinox. So that's available, that wonderful ebook to show you on a few different dimensions of receiving self-care, even as simple as working with color. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And something about the word receiving is really striking me right now, too, as we're moving into spring and receiving all the nurturing and receiving the light and receiving everything, right? Tending to, and not the tending to would be more the masculine, but the receiving is more the feminine. And so the sacred care is so beautifully, like it's a beautiful offering. Thank you for that, too, Marissa. Jen, final words, final message.
Well, one final word. There's no words, so I can't use my words. It's just gratitude for these beautiful shares and conversations. Very, very rich, very full, and I'm very grateful. And yeah, the self-love audio series and guidebook was created to help identify those barriers to love, right? And so that will stay on the table as an opportunity of self-reflection, moving through each of the chakras and just bringing a greater awareness of where we exist in separation. And there's an audio series that goes along with it that provides light language transmissions to assist in the clearing and the releasing.
So beautiful.
Self-love alchemy is what it's called. Sorry, my words of Marissa's last share just kind of blew me out. So yeah. I'm like, what?
See, but that's the thing, right? Like we're all receiving. Even though we're showing up in a way as, supporting others, when we show up and really are present and just coming from our heart and our most authentic way of being, we receive. So each one of us is receiving this beautiful light and transmission. And, you can't put words to it, but you can feel it. So I thank you. Now, Marixa, final words.
I just wish to say thank you all again and for being here and for your amazing shares and wisdom. I have a couple of things that I can share and gift, but I need to decide which one. That will actually, there are small activations that you could dive into and find inspiration to just let yourself go and just bring into the new. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you. And I hear you on trying to decide which one, because I have, there's a couple. There's one on relationships that I'm thinking of including right now, but there's also one on the inner child where when as a young child, we inherit all these beliefs. And so that feels very important to me too. But so does the one on relationships, because it is based on our relationship with Source, our relationship with the divine. And for me, that is where we're all being invited to. That is home. It's not separate from us. It's not God in the sky that we're praying to. Prayer is every single moment, every word that we speak is a form of affirmation. We're affirming either to life, extending that, loving that, and embracing and, expanding, or we're affirming something that's separating us. And we get to decide, but this is where there's a choice point. So I love that spring is about new beginnings, because each one of us is constantly offered moment to moment to make a choice. And whatever choices we've made before, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at on your journey, because within you, you already carry that love, that source, an aspect of the creator that you have been created to be, and to carry that out and connect with. And so I don't know, there's something so beautiful about it when we recognize, and it's not simple to get there, but you know, that's the big thing is, but you can get there. And so if you join us and everything is sacred, each one of us is showing up in a way that's supporting you in this journey and saying, you've got this. You have got this. And then you're adding to, and you're helping become, you know, the person that's walking. We're all walking each other home, which isn't somewhere out there. It's within. So it's an experience within that we get to be witness to and feel and embody. So with that, I thank each one of you for saying yes. I will forever be grateful, because this is bringing me more into my heart, more into my experience of myself as soul. And I thank each one of you who are viewing and watching and joining us. And we invite you to join us in our community. Everything is sacred. And with that, I send each one of you love, peace, and blessings. Bye for now. We'll see you in April.